Hello. Welcome to the Persecution Report, a podcast dedicated to uncovering the truth behind current situation in Bangladesh. In today's episode, we will explore some of the crucial aspects of Bangladesh's identity, one that resonates deeply in the global stage. How is Bangladesh viewed on an international stage? What factors have influenced these perceptions over the years? As we ponder these questions, we will uncover the enduring strengths of our national brand and take stock of our current position. We will investigate how Brand Bangladesh, once hailed as a story of growth and grit, is now facing an identity crisis. We must also carefully evaluate the facts at hand and determine how the narrative surrounding Bangladesh's brand can be shaped or even transformed in light of the current circumstances. Before diving deep into these compelling discussions, it is essential to grasp the foundations of branding in general and nation branding in particular. Stay with us as we navigate this intricate landscape, shedding light on the vibrant tapestry of Bangladesh's reputation and its potential for growth on the world stage. We have a panel of experts today. Dr. David M. Brown, an academic and exponent in branding, author of Essentials of Marketing. We have Mr. Tonoy Imroja Alam, human rights activist. We have Dr. Raihan Jamil, Center for Bangladesh Genocide Research, and Mr. Shah Adanuz Zaman, Secretary, Innovation and Entrepreneurship of Bangladesh Student League. May I first come to Dr. Brown about branding? And we know that branding is a very topical area within marketing, and that's one of your specialized areas as well. As an author of Essential of Marketing, which is a very popular textbook here in the United Kingdom, how would you see generally about branding?
Thank you, Bidit. Yes, a brand really is a collection of ideas which a user or an audience or a customer has about the entity which is transmitting those ideas. So it's more than just a name or a logo. It's the sum of all the experiences and all the perceptions which are associated with a product, a service, an organization, or indeed a person or a place. So it can actually apply to a place, such as a country like Bangladesh. So it's about the experiences which people have and the perceptions. And although the organization or the country will try to build a brand, ultimately it's the audience who decides what the brand is, because it's about their perceptions and how they understand that brand. So it's a collection of ideas. It's very intangible, and it adds value to public's perceptions of what something is. It ties it together. It's almost like taking lots of diverse meanings, wrapping them up, putting them in an envelope so that they're more deliverable and more consumable.
If I'm not mistaken, the word brand, the etymology says that it comes from a branch in Central Europe, where people used to differentiate their cattle from their neighbors, and
Yes.
so essentially it is about differentiation and kind of demonstrating the unique characteristics, isn't it?
It is. That's right. This is because English is derived from Old Germanic, and if anyone speaks German, the verb for to burn is brennen, and it comes from there. Cattle ranchers, for example, would brand a cow. They'd get a hot piece of metal with their symbol on it and put it into the side of the cow to differentiate it from their neighbour's cattle, basically. So it prevents theft in some cases, but as you say, it also differentiates it from other products as well, and it can add significant value to a product or a person or a place, because it allows customers and audiences to choose that one place or person or brand specifically over others. It makes it identifiable.
Excellent. And as you have said that virtually anything and everything can be branded. So
Very much so. Yes, yes.
David Beckham
People,
can be branded, yeah, as is branded, well branded. Yeah.
absolutely, yes. So people, places, organizations, objects, products, services, they can all be branded. I suppose close to home, a neighbouring country to the UK, we've got Iceland, and that's branded itself very well recently. It's only a country of about 350,000 people, and it's a cold country, so very, very different to Bangladesh on both counts. But it's managed to project itself on the world stage as somewhere that you go for freedom, for fresh air, and for adventure as well. So the voice which it has is, if you like, out of all proportion to its size and its population. So branding can be extremely beneficial to a country in raising awareness of a country as a place to visit as a tourist, but also a place to do business with as well.
And also even regions can be branded, like Silicon Valley. That a particular region has got a certain set of attributes which define their expertise, specialization.
That's right, yes. And in the UK, we've got the Golden Triangle as well, and that's London, Oxford, and Cambridge. And you've all heard of those universities, and it's tying those areas together. And rather than having three disparate entities, if you like, trying to combine them as a cohesive whole, so that you can start to draw other areas into it as well, just to build up perceptions of those places amongst various stakeholders.
Excellent, great. And when you talk about a place can have negative perceptions as well. I mean, sometimes a place starts losing its image, its identity.
Absolutely, yes, that can happen. And I live in the north of England, and to a certain extent, that's happened in the north of England because it was an industrial powerhouse. But then the UK moved from really being a manufacturing country to being a service industry country, and the north fell behind. So the north of England got all these negative connotations to do with post-industrial decay, a little bit like the Rust Belt in the USA. And of course, for political factors as well, countries can lose their appeal. We've seen that numerous times over, certainly over my lifetime. Places that were once very popular, exotic places to visit. Beirut would be an example here, the Paris of the Mediterranean. And then because of civil war and political strife, its brand has very much fallen away from that. So, yes, yeah, certainly places can be on the up, but they can be on the way down as
Yeah,
well as a result.
that's a very good example. In 80s, up until civil war broke out in Lebanon, Beirut was known as the Paris of the Middle East, and
Yes,
it had a lot to offer. It still has got a lot to offer, but sadly, because of the constant political turmoil and everything, has severely tarnished the image. So yes, now I would like to go back to some more academic discussion surrounding
mhm.
related to branding, and we often talk about brand equity or consumer-based or customer-based brand equity. Can you please shed some light, because that kind of defines the drivers and factors that constitute the value of a brand.
Absolutely, yes. So, brand equity, it sounds a little bit like marketers sort of muscling in on accountants and financial directors' turf, doesn't it? And I suppose it is to a certain extent. Brand equity is basically the value which a brand adds to a product, a service, or an organization, or indeed a place. Um, the example which I normally use when talking to students is Coca-Cola, and the market value of Coca-Cola is usually somewhere between 150 billion and 200 billion dollars. But if you think about their tangible assets, their factories, the machinery, the cans, everything else that they've got, it's only a fraction of that. It's only sort of 35 to 40 $1 billion only. It's still a lot of money. So where does the rest of the value come from? Quite simply, it's brand equity. So it's the position which it occupies in the minds of consumers. It's the fact that if all those factories and all those bottling plants and everything were sort of disappeared and they had to start from scratch, they'd still be able to do it because they've got this knowledge, this goodwill, this recognition of the brand within the marketplace. And that's the most important thing. And in actual fact, I think Warren Buffett was asked a few years ago, what are the things that you look for when you're investing in a company? And one of them was the people. He said, but basically I can go away and recruit my own people. One of them is the product. And he said, but, I can sort of bring new products into the range. And he said, in first place, it would be the brand, because if you've got that goodwill, that knowledge, that position in the marketplace, that differentiation from other brands, then that gives you a really good foundation to build upon.
Great. And it's also connected with the concept of brand architecture, where we can see the branded house or house of brands.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So there are different types of brand architecture. The most basic one would be a monolithic architecture, or a single brand, if you like, where you just have one brand on its own, maybe a product on its own. Then we have house of brands, and sometimes we sort of think of that as a stable of brands, if you like. So I used to work back in the past for Fiat, and of course we had Ferrari, and we had Lancia and Alfa Romeo and a lot of other brands there as well. And the idea is that you should target them at slightly different parts of the market so that you've got good market coverage, but you're not cannibalizing each other's business there. So that would be a house of brands. You also see it with Procter & Gamble, Unilever, where they have subsidiary brands. Some of them are endorsed. Some of them are like Hampton by Hilton hotels, but some of them, the parent company is completely invisible. So monolithic brands, endorsed brands, and house of brands tend to be the three main ones. And in the context of places, obviously, you can be Bangladesh, you can be South Asia, and other different large collections of countries and areas and regions as well.
And also we know that the country of origin effect plays a vital role when it comes to, because nation brand fits into how people would perceive about the products coming from that particular country.
It does very much, yes. So certainly in the UK, German engineering is seen as very prestigious, much to the annoyance of my father, who is an English engineer. It used to drive him wild when he was still employed. But yes, German engineering is seen as being very robust and engineered to a high degree, so much so that people will pay more for something which is made in Germany, even if it's the equivalent of what's made elsewhere. You probably see it with French wines, Italian suits as well. This is not an Italian suit. This is a cheap suit. And yes, you're absolutely right. So from different countries, people associate those countries with being better at doing certain things. And it means that they'll be more likely to perceive them as prestigious, to pay more for them, and they're more likely to be loyal and keep going back to those countries for those products and services.
Yeah. Now, reflecting on our discussion, so we understand that brand is a way of differentiating a product, place, or person or service, and therefore we understand that a brand should embody certain characteristics. And also, when it comes to nation branding, it is connected with how the brand equity will be developed, as well as how the brand architecture, which is like how the brand will be connected with its subsidiary attributes, as well as the concept of country of origin. Now, if we may say that, so what do you see as the core ingredients of a successful nation brand?
Well, the first one would be identity, because at the heart of marketing and brand management, you've got to differentiate yourself from others. Otherwise, you just become a commodity. And you've got to say what you're all about, what it is that you stand for, and convey that in some way to your audiences. And I suppose that's the dark art of marketing, really, isn't it? Taking all those meanings and putting them not necessarily in a verbal manner, but in a way that you can transmit them to audiences. So, in terms of identity, what is it that makes the nation unique? We're thinking about its culture, its history, its heritage, its geography, the people as well, and the values which it represents. Now, sometimes these get completely mythologized, and I'm aware that there are quite a lot of ideas about England and Englishness, which I never see, walking around. But we're associated with certain things, if you like. Um, but it's all in perception. So if people perceive it to be the case, then you have a strong brand. So Bangladesh could highlight, for example, its dynamic young population. So that's something which sets it apart from a lot of countries. I know a lot of its surrounding countries obviously are very populous as well, but certainly to someone from the UK, we look at Bangladesh and one of the first things we notice is, wow, what a lot of people compared to our country. The cultural richness, so various festivals, that kind of thing. Natural beauty as well. So you're thinking about mangrove forests and Cox's Bazar, that kind of thing. And historic resilience. So the story behind Bangladesh, the struggles that it's been through, the hardships it's endured, and the way it's come through that could very well be an important part of the national brand. The second thing after identity would be positioning. So that's how you wish to be seen in the world. So would you wish to be seen as innovative, as a tourist hub, as somewhere which is, uniquely a good place to do business? It could be the rising tiger of South Asia, for example. So it's thinking about what it is, what the core message is that you want to get across. So just as Iceland has gone with freedom, spirit of adventure, and that kind of thing, you'd be thinking about, well, what is it that Bangladesh wants to convey? The third one would be image and reputation management. So that's, if you like, public relations, thinking about how it conveys those messages to the world. And they would be the main areas, I would say, in a nation brand. Those three areas.
And how about governance and stability, political unrest or political stability?
Certainly has an impact, doesn't it? Because people don't like nasty surprises. I think people like countries to be relatively predictable. Even countries like the USA, which we're seeing at the moment, people are kind of shying away and thinking, well, it's very unpredictable, and it's very difficult to do business with. So instability certainly can have a detrimental effect. And if we're looking at things like poor human rights records as well, that can certainly deter a lot of people from trading with those companies and also visiting. To a certain extent, it depends upon who the audience is. And if you like, what the, for want of a better term, purchase occasion is as well. It could well be that people are very willing to travel to countries which are a little bit tumultuous, and we've seen that with countries perhaps like Turkey, which have gone through quite strong political change over the last 15 or 20 years, and people have still wanted to go on holiday there to the Dalmatian coast and places like that. Turquoise coast in Turkey. But having said that, from a business point of view and from political integration, that's probably been the reason why it's not become part of the EU. So it depends on the audience, if you like. Business audiences and tourist audiences and different audiences would prioritize things differently when dealing with the country, and that would have an effect on how they perceive the nation brand.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. I'll come back to you later. In the meanwhile, I'll now look at the current situation in Bangladesh. And as you have just alluded to about the political situations, uncertainties, governance, law and order. So we will have a quick look at the situation in Bangladesh in light of these specific areas. May I request Mr. Adan to take us through some of the current development, please?
Thank you, Mr. Dave, for having me here today. So, when someone in the United States asks me from which country I come from, and when I say Bangladesh, I usually find two types of audiences. The first kind of audience, which is in a lot of cases is the vast majority, has literally no idea about Bangladesh. They have never heard about our great nation. But then I tell them, if you go through your wardrobe, and you will most likely find at least a t-shirt that has label which is called made in Bangladesh. You see the problem, right? Bangladesh has little to no brand recognition. You may say, why is this important? We are not doing business here. We are not Apple or Nike who built a strong brand to make sure anyone in the planet recognizes their names or at least some of their products. Then I would argue that you have got this wrong. Because just like companies and individuals, nations also require a strong brand identity. Let's say you are someone who invests in equities in the stock market. You are someone from the US and who perhaps uses the Robinhood app to make trades. Would you invest in a company you have never heard of? Even if you want to, you will never be able to do that, right? Because you don't even know that the company even exists. For a moment, replace yourself with the foreign investors. Though there is no mobile app for foreign investors to choose and pick foreign countries to invest in, what becomes crucial is one, whether they know about our country, and two, whether they know about us for the right reasons. Because there is this second kind of audience who has heard about our country, but for all the wrong reasons. They've heard about us because of terrorism, for floods and natural disasters, for oppression against minorities, not so good factories for our workforce, and mob violence. You need foreign direct investments to develop your industries, to create jobs, and then increase your export earnings. So, how we position the brand of our country globally is directly correlated to the amount of investment we're going to receive. And I think since August 5th, 2024, Bangladesh is not making the headlines for the right reasons, not from the perspective of an investor. The first is factories are being attacked and looted by the mob across the country. For instance, Gazi Tires factory in Narayanganj's Rupganj area was attacked, looted, and set ablaze. When a foreign investor, you see that the financial capital you are going to give to an entrepreneur to set up a factory can be attacked and looted, and the law enforcement agencies do absolutely nothing to stop it. You will be worried to invest. And the most horrifying aspect about these attacks on business establishments is some of these attacks are planned, well coordinated, and announced even days ago publicly so that the mob can bring their vehicles, which they will use to carry the looted items from the factory. Secondly, as of January 2025, 68 factories were closed in Gazipur and 5 in Savar. If a country that is trying to position itself as a global manufacturing hub, if the factories get attacked and get shut down, that worries investors and specifically foreign partners as well. For instance, in the context of garment sector, foreign buyers will simply hesitate to give the new orders for their products. Instead, they will look for other alternatives like Vietnam. As Mr. Brown said, investors and foreign partners, they like predictability. And for that particular reason, United States became a global empire after the Bretton Woods Agreement, right? Because it gave predictability. So the problem is when mob violence is surging, it eliminates the factor of predictability. So you not only fail to attract new foreign investors and partners, you will fail to refrain the existing ones. You will fail to retain the existing ones who are driving some percentage of your growth.
Thanks, Adan. Can we get some more stats about, please? Because we understand the situation right now, but we'd like to know more about the statistical part or the information that you have.
So just before going to the stat, India has revoked the transshipment facility for Bangladesh's export cargo to third countries transiting through its land borders to Indian airports and ports. This key facility allowed Bangladesh to use India's land customs and stations for transshipment of export cargo, including for Bhutan, Nepal, and Myanmar. Due to this facility, Bangladesh could transport cargo through Indian borders and get it shipped from Indian ports or airports, making it a profitable venture for our exporters. As a result, it can lead to increased shipping costs and delivery time for Bangladesh's exporters, particularly for goods moving through Indian airports and ports. Lastly, the net foreign direct investment, the FDI, in Bangladesh plunged a 5-year low in 2024. All of this offers us a distress signal and a headwind for Bangladesh's economy. Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you very much. That's very informative. Now, may I ask Mr. Alam and Dr. Jamil to reflect upon the law and order situation in general in Bangladesh currently? Mr. Alam, you can start, and then Mr. Dr. Jamil can follow, please. Mr. Alam, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. When we speak about law and order of any country, at the center of it rests a cardinal premise, that is rule of law. Under the current regime in Bangladesh, that's central tenet is missing. There is no rule of law in Bangladesh. Our court system has been violated by mobs. We have seen lawyers going to jail. We have seen lawyers are beaten within the premise of the court for defending a client. We have seen judges are forced to resign by mob just because these judges were appointed by the previous government. It is not necessary that these people were appointed based on their political affiliation. They are appointed because these posts of judges cannot be vacant. You will have to have judges to control the law and order situation of the country. What we have seen just after Muhammad Yunus came to power or took over the power, he announced impunity for the perpetrators who looted the garments, who looted the factories. We have been speaking about Ghazi tire industry. There is something very impressive about Ghazi tire industry. As you know, Bangladesh is a country of 180 million people. And since 2008 till 2024, Bangladesh had an amazing economic transformation. In 2008, we have a middle class population, which was 12 million. In 2024, because of the policies of the government, our middle class population raised over 40 million. And that is, aside from its young workforce, this is the power of Bangladesh, the middle class. We have our own market that good consumers. Ghazi Tire in Bangladesh is the only tire factory. Bangladesh has a massive market. People want car, people have money, they want commodities. And Ghazi Tire was the only manufacturer of tire. Before that, Bangladesh imported all its need of tires and other accessories. Ghazi Tire, that's a vision. This factory is an icon of Bangladesh, that they made a country self-sufficient in one product, a very important product. This factory was vandalized, torched, no justice.
And 180 people went missing.
And that
It's
is
even the saddest part.
that's a travesty. That 182 people died there despicably. The government didn't even care to form an investigation committee that how these 180 people died. Those people, 180 people, they are not just people numbers. They have names, they have families. Maybe some of them are women and children. That this is the message the government gives, a government message that okay, 180 people died. Those lives are dispensable.
And also, it was as Adan mentioned during his presentation, it was a coordinated attack because it happened twice. Once on the wake of 5th August, and also second time it happened again a few months later. So it shows that there were plans, and there were no measures.
And it's a blanket impunity for
Impunity.
everyone.
Yeah, very very
Like
concerning. Very concerning.
182 people died, despicably died.
Yeah.
They were torched, and government didn't care to form an investigation committee.
Yeah.
Who
Thanks,
are the
thanks, Mr.
perpetrators?
Alam. I will.
And
I'll,
this speaks about our
yeah,
law and order situation right now
yeah.
under Muhammad Yunus.
Thanks, Mr. Alam. That's a very grim picture. I can understand that. Now, over to you, Dr. Jamil. About because we saw there was an investment summit a few days back, and while the summit was going on, there was again mob violence against some of the local and multinational companies. So, what does that portray about the country?
Thank you, Dr. Day, for giving me the floor. And from my part of the world, a good afternoon to all our audience and our participants. Kind of piggybacking off of what Dr. Brown and Mr. Adanuzzaman mentioned earlier, which would lead me to the answer to your question, is our focus on nation branding. And nation branding fundamentally requires stable governance and respect for the rule of law. We just cannot have it any other way. Now, under the current regime, widespread political repression, human rights abuses, targeted violence are seriously damaging Bangladesh's brand equity. Right? We have all seen examples that Mr. Alam also just pointed out. Mr. Adanuzzaman also gave some examples of it. We saw how damaging it has been. Impunity can never bring rule of law or any sense of closure. We need to have transparent governance and political legitimacy that are essential to sustaining national and nation branding, which is fundamentally absent since August of 2024, where the terrorist-led coup took place in Bangladesh. Now, nation branding efforts fail when there's a contradiction between the projected image internationally and the domestic political realities. I want all of you to think about it for a moment. The contradiction between what is projected about our nation internationally and the gap between the domestic realities on the ground. So if that is where the difference lies, then definitely we're failing miserably in not only building our image as a nation, but also deteriorating and ruining the image that we had. So that brings me to some specific examples, I think, which would answer your question. So since the August 2024 terrorist-led coup, which in itself has a huge implication on the global scale, Bangladesh is going through a huge loss of democratic image globally. Right, the vandalism of multinational organizations, which you kind of brought up here as well, during the investment summit, where multinational companies like Bata, KFC, Pepsi, and several others were looted in the name of pro-Palestinian movement, definitely ruined the perception of Bangladesh and created a perception that Bangladesh is unsafe for investment. Now, for multinational and multi-billion corporations, this whole notion of image is extremely important, right? Companies tend to focus more on reputational risks which now outweighs potential profit margins for them in Bangladesh, right? So investor confidence has eroded, right? Investor confidence has significantly eroded when
Yeah.
property rights are not protected and business environments are controlled by.
Thanks, Dr. Jamal. That's very thoughtful and very, very insightful analysis from your side. So now we have understood that the current law and order situation in Bangladesh is not at all conducive or friendly for investment and trade. Now, what Dr. Brown mentioned very categorically and very eloquently about the cultural heritage which plays a significant part for building a nation brand. And Dr. Brown has referred to the rich cultural heritage of Bangladesh. So, where do we stand with regard to that? May I request Mr. Adam to take us through it very briefly about what is the current situation with regard to upholding the secular culture of Bangladesh?
Thank you, Mr. Day. So, to effectively brand a country, nation states need to utilize and promote their culture across the world. But in the status quo, millions of Bangladeshis are living in a country that is run by extremists, terrorists, and the mob. Hindu minorities and Ahmadiyya minorities are constantly being attacked and persecuted because of their religious identity. A nation that was even a year ago known for its secular fabric, now witnessing Sufi shrines are being attacked, vandalized, and looted by the extremists. As of January 2025, 80 Sufi shrines were attacked by the radicals across the nation. Women no longer feel safe in Bangladesh because extremists and terrorists want to impose draconian, outdated, and most importantly, discriminatory rules in the country. The number of sexual harassments and rape victims have significantly increased in the country. Bangladesh's cultural heritage is now under attack. Sculptures, memorials are being vandalized across the nation by the radicals. This is not exactly new for the world, right? In fact, I would argue that Bangladeshi terrorists and extremists are following exactly the same playbook of global terrorist outfits like ISIS. We have seen ISIS destroying historical artifacts and sculptures in Syria and Iraq. How absurd is that extremists coerce everyone in the country to alter the name of the procession that marks the Bangla New Year from Mongol Shobhajatra to Ananda Shobhajatra? Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adan. Now, may I request Mr. Alam to talk about the persecution of minorities? I think, as we know, more than 2,000 cases have been reported. Could you please shed some light on that?
Thank you, Vidita. This is the saddening part of this conversation. Bangladesh is a country. Our civilization is almost 3,000 years old. We know about our country from Alexander's historians who came to conquer the land, and we met. Over the years, people came from Turkey, people came from Afghanistan, people came from all over India, people came, the Mongolian descent people came, and in Bangladesh, we all together, we made a nation. In this 144,000 square kilometer, we had Muslims, we had Hindus, we had Buddhists, Christians. I have been living in many countries. I have never seen in any country in the world that has holidays for Muslim festival, Hindu festival, national holidays, for Christian festivals, for all religions. Bangladesh has it. For Buddhist, for all religion, we have festivals and festival holidays. And this is the fabric of Bangladesh. Suddenly, we have seen turbulences time to time because we have fundamentalists. What we are seeing right now is a genocidal and systematic oppression of minorities. When I say minorities, It's not, it's religious minorities, it's ethnic minorities, cultural minorities. Also, opposing political voices that you do not like. 2,000 incidents of attacks against Hindu religious sect. 2,000 attacks. That reminds us of Afghanistan. That reminds us of Syria. The the count is so high. What Adnan was saying about our culture, we have seen in Bamiyan, Taliban destroying the Buddhist sculptures. We have seen ISIS destroying cultural sites in Palmyra. This is exactly what we are seeing in Bangladesh. Like
Yeah.
you may say that, okay, Hizbut Tahrir is staging a rally. That's turbulence. You may say that. But when you see 1,400 sculptures and museums have been destroyed and no action was taken against the perpetrators,
Yeah.
you know it's systematic.
Thanks, Mr. Alam. I would like to request, thanks, that's a very, very insightful, at the same time, quite concerning too. But Dr. Jamil, I mean, of course, Mr. Alam has put in a kind of drawn our attention to the minority religious aspect, but also, as we know, that Bangladesh has always practiced a very pluralistic and tolerant version of Islam, and that's what has been the strength of country as a nation, right? Nevertheless, we can see attacks on shrines. So other sects within, or the minority sects within Muslim community are also not safe here. Would you like to say something about that, please?
Definitely. What Mr. Alam has portrayed is a very gloom picture, but that is the grounded reality in Bangladesh. We have always been a secular country. It's one of the founding pillars of Bangladesh from 1971. However, what has been transpiring lately has been very alarming to say the least. And if we connect this to our overall theme of nation branding, we have to think how it impacts tourism. So, on one hand, we are and were a Muslim majority country where all other religions had their freedom to practice more or less safely. But now that is no longer the case. Looting and vandalizing of minority religious establishment in the name of religion, specifically peaceful religion of Islam, is a definite example and pointer, an indicator of Bangladesh perhaps turning into Afghanistan or even worse, Pakistan. Right? Pakistan has its own share of terrorism, and if you look at Balochistan, what they're doing.
I mean, maybe we do not say about any particular country. We can be a little bit. We can restrain from criticizing or vilifying another country, right? So I understand your theme, what you are trying to say, but yes, I understand that. Yeah. Yes, please continue. Carry on.
I understand about being perhaps politically correct, but see, this is historical facts. It's not about vilifying any specific country in that way. These are facts that cannot be denied. And if we look at how nation branding is dependent on the perception of safety and cultural hospitality, and of course, religious popularity, popularism, pluralism, then definitely all of this comes into play. We have a systematic failure in management and security in Bangladesh. And lest we forget, not only this, the whole notion of diaspora tourism in Bangladesh, specifically non resident Bangladeshis, will definitely shrink and fall, impacting not only our global investment, but also domestic investment and growth in the process.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jamal. And I apologize once again for cut you short. But you have actually taken us to a very interesting dimension, which Dr. Brown also referred to, about
I would like to
tourism.
point out something here, Bidit.
Okay,
that
yes, please go ahead.
how Bangladesh branded itself. Bangladesh branded itself as a secular democratic nation and a tolerant nation on the basis the freedom of women, freedom for tolerance for all like tolerance regardless of your race, religion, or gender. We
Exactly.
all were equal. And when we speak about Bangladeshi form of Islam, the very moderate Sufi Islam, that Islam came to Bangladesh with all these Sufi people, the poets, darvish, what we call the singers. Today, 85 of the Sufi shrines, the center of those Islam, were attacked, vandalized. And when these were attacked, they didn't just attack suddenly. They announced it from the microphones of the mic of the mosque.
Yeah.
They created a mob
Yeah.
and they came and they vandalized.
Thanks, Mr. Alam. That's
We,
again very
we
valuable
branded
point.
ourselves
Yeah.
as like in our country, we had 12,000 elected women representatives in Bangladesh,
Thanks,
highest
Mr.
in the
Alam.
world.
I'm conscious of
This
time,
is our
so
brand.
yeah, because we have to cover our the tourism side, and I'm sure Mr. Adan has got some slides to share about the tourism sector in Bangladesh currently. Briefly, Mr. Adan, please.
Yeah, thank you. So Bangladesh's tourism industry has long backed our economy, especially the local economies that are tourist attractions or destinations. But imagine being abducted in Bangladesh on your way to visit the country. Three Sri Lankan nationals were abducted in Bangladesh. Even Bangladeshi students are being abducted from these tourist destinations. The interim government in Bangladesh has imposed a travel ban from February 1st of 2025. This travel ban would significantly hurt the local economy of Saint Martin Island, which is Bangladesh's largest tourist attraction. The ongoing communal violence, terrorism, and kidnapping in Khagrachori, Rangamati, and Bandarban hill tracts have reached at a tipping point that the United States Department of State has issued a level 4 travel alert instructing Americans not to travel in these tourist destinations. This is the grim reality in Bangladesh right now. Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you so much. May I request Dr. Jamil to just reflect on the fact that there was a huge surge in internal domestic tourism. You mentioned about diasporic tourism as well. So how do you think that this can, in the current situation, things can pan out?
Kind of reiterating what I spoke about a little bit earlier, Bangladesh was seeing a huge growth in internal tourism, right? Beside the diasporic tourism. So people like us who are living abroad, studying abroad, working, when we go home with our current mindset, we have so many places to visit in Bangladesh. But forget about the people living abroad, the non-residents. Even people in Bangladesh, if you talk to your family and friends, or if you look at their social media profiles, we have seen how they're traveling to many parts of the country. Some beautiful scenic spots and Instagrammable moments to share. But in the last 7 to 8 months, with huge risk of security and uncertainty and unsafety under Dr. Yunus's regime with Jamaat-e Islami, this is no longer viable. People are afraid to even travel during Eid or any other religious festivals. So I think an obvious downturn and downflow is imminent and probably is already visible.
Thanks, Dr. Jamal. That's very helpful. Now, Mr. Alam, as we know that Chittagong Hill Tracts became a very popular destination for domestic tourism, but lately, multiple Western countries have declared travel alert for their citizens, and we can see from Adan's presentation that there are cases of abduction. So the Chittagong Hill Tracts region has become very volatile, and that has certainly affected in domestic tourism. What do you think about it? Sorry, you are on mute.
Before I speak about that, I would like to inform our audience what's happening in Bangladesh right now. Just right now, the Pyra electricity production hub, which is one of the major electricity production hub in Bangladesh, is right now burning. As this government cannot secure electricity production in Bangladesh, they will have to show people that we do not have electricity right now because it has been burnt. They are going to blame someone for it. But no one in such secure premise can burn it. When we speak about Chittagong Hill Tracts is one of the places where Bangladesh seen turmoils. We had insurgency movements there. There were some differences. But when Bangladesh Awami League came to power in 1997, one of the first things it did was that Chittagong Hill Tract peace treaty with all our ethnic people. Since 1997, there was massive investment in Chittagong Hill Tracts. And as we said, from 2008 to 2024, Bangladesh was a story of economic success. 40 million people out of are now in the middle class. They wanted to go travel. So we had an internal tourism market in the hill tracts, especially one of the main tourist destination. We had massive resorts which have been burned down again. We have seen one of our main tourism centers, Sajek Valley, a beautiful, amazing place. You have seen Switzerland, you have seen Darjeeling in India, you have seen Kashmir. Sajek Valley in Bangladesh is no less. There are dozens of tourist lodges, resorts have been burnt there. Okay, let's say, okay, it could happen. There is arson could happen. Let's say, okay, for an argument's sake. What surprising is government didn't do an investigation why it happened. It is the duty of the government to find out, okay, if there are people with ill intention did it. Government didn't do any investigation. They didn't care for it.
Or they are perhaps not competent, or maybe they do not have any control over the people who are actually perpetrating these attacks, or they do not have control over the law enforcement agencies who have been completely demoralized during August violence.
So, okay, let's say for an argument's sake, okay, I agree to you, but we have to have an investigation to find out what happened. Okay, it takes like 5 people, 10 people. The government must have 10 people within under their wing to have an investigation to find out the cause of such destruction and devastation, like destroying a whole industry. Yeah. This is not just about those resorts. It's about people's lives.
Insane. This is insane. This is
hundreds of jobs.
Yeah,
gone.
This cannot happen in a country which aspires to be a global role model for investment and growth and economic success.
We used to be. We used to be. Every
Thank you, Mr.
year,
Alam.
We had 4 billion at least of
investment,
$4 billion investment from outside Bangladesh.
Thank you. Thanks for your contribution, because we have got just 5 minutes left. I'll now get back to Dr. Brown. I know, Dr. Brown, you have done some studies on Bangladesh yourself, but now you have learned from our other panel members about what's happening in the last 8 months or so. Now, from an independent point of view, how would you, from an academic point of view, how would you assess brand Bangladesh in light of what you have just heard?
I think perhaps the most pertinent point is to reflect back on what Dr. Jamil said about the need for consistency, and that is that it's very difficult to have a strong nation brand which resonates with people both within the country and outside the country, if the reality which is being transmitted to audiences doesn't match the reality of everyday lived experiences. It actually goes back to social psychology. There was a social psychologist, Leon Festinger, in 1957, who talked about cognitive dissonance, and basically, if the reality being portrayed by a brand isn't the same as what's happening inside the country, then people, sooner or later will pick up on that, and it will undermine the brand completely. It will rob it of any ability, any stickability with its audiences. So I think that's always a big danger for countries which are going through political turmoil, and maybe to outsiders it isn't immediately apparent because we don't pick up on the details in the news, but sooner or later it starts to filter out, and it impacts very negatively on the nation brand in the same way that we've seen with like the likes of Lebanon and Beirut, of course.
Thank you so much. Viewers, in the last 1 hour or so, we have learned about how a potentially very promising nation is now suffering. And we see that that since August, the country Bangladesh and its brand and its image are at very, very serious threat and risk. We are the risk of losing our image. We're the risk of losing investment. We're the risk of losing our connection with the rest of the world. As Dr. Brown said, that the reality has to match the narrative. We see the current interim government provides a lot of rhetorics, a lot of talking being done, but actual reality is completely different. And that's why we feel that it's about time that a more widespread awareness and consciousness need to be developed in order to salvage what this country still has got left with. And that's why many commentators are saying a prompt and quick and peaceful and systematic transition to an elected government is the best way forward. And we genuinely hope that it will happen at the earliest possible opportunity. Dear all, stay tuned, stay well, stay informed, stay with us. Thank you very much. Bidit Day signing off now. Thank you.